Welcome back to another episode of the EVO 6 STI Killer presented by Koyorad. Today's job is getting this thing assembled so we can drop it back into the engine bay.
Clearly we like gold around here, and this is DEI's reflected gold tape, and it does what you would think it would do. It reflects heat off of these things and protects them from heat soak. And with this header, having all these primaries up here radiating heat in this part of the engine bay, we felt it was a good idea to protect the valve cover and put some on this heat shield on the power steering pump as well. And now we're thinking, you know what, maybe we should pop the manifold off at some point and get it Cerakoted. If you don't know what Cerakote is, it's a spray-on coating that traps heat in the manifold. So rather than letting it radiate out, it traps it in there and forces out the exhaust, which would also make the turbo system more efficient too. So that's something I think we're probably going to do, because the way this is sitting up so high in the engine bay, we kind of feel like it might heat soak the bay pretty badly. So other options would be like an Inconel wrap that we've used on some headers before, or using your traditional like titanium heat wrap. Those are all options to consider, but the Cerakote's a nice clean look, so we may go with that. JP at Stripping Tech, putting you on standby, buddy. Also obviously did all these pulleys over here. So we are all set up on the pulley side, water pump, power steering. We've got our alternator in place, our tensioner pulley in place. There was a little thought that had to go into it, because it's been a few months since we tore this all down. Some of the bracketry, we're like, how does that go on there? We may have even had to have removed this once, having already installed it, and put it back on again with the alternator in place. So the struggle continues, everybody, but we are making solid progress. Well, it's time for out with the old and in with the new. And I gotta say, this factory flywheel is surprisingly light. I guess I've been spoiled, or not spoiled, the opposite of spoiled, but working on those big boy motors lately with some big heavy flywheels. But we'll get you the weights in a minute. But this is our spec clutch billet aluminum flywheel, and as you can see, one of the features we really like about it is that the face here is removable. So if you were to wear it out, or have a clutch failure or something go wrong where you want to replace it, you just unbolt it and you can order a replacement one from spec, which saves you the cost of having to buy the whole flywheel again. So and as you can see, they've gone to great lengths to remove weight from it. We were stumped momentarily about why there was no pilot bearing, but then we realized this motor doesn't use a pilot bearing. So anyway, let's throw it on the scale here, and we'll show you how light this guy is. We're like 7.5 pounds, it looks like.
That's what it looks like, 7.5.
All right. Typically, we found that specs billet flywheels are about half the weight of the factory flywheel. In this case, though, I'll be surprised if it's that much, because this guy is pretty light too. Let's see what we get. And we are getting right around 11 pounds. So we're saving, what's that, 4.5 pounds, something like that, which is still a significant percentage of the weight of the flywheel. But wow, this stock flywheel is pretty darn light. And maybe I'll get that out of here someday. All right, there she goes. So we're gonna bolt this up now with some ARP hardware. Why'd you splurge on the fancy flywheel bolts, Pete? Are they the OEM ones like single use or something, or?
DP, you know where those are from?
No.
The Stash.
The Stash.
The Stash.
Okay, you just had these kicking around.
I had them kicking around.
And they are for 4G63. Wow, why were you
See?
hoarding this?
I don't know, maybe from a previous EVO build.
Actually, before we install the flywheel, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're doing for the clutch. And this is a spec clutch Stage 2 Plus, which we've used in a bunch of different vehicles now. We use the 2 Plus in our Scion FRS, and that car has taken an absolute beating, and that clutch has been absolutely reliable in that car. So we really like this 2 Plus spec because it's got that perfect combination of like streetability and torque capacity. So the streetability really comes from this Kevlar face on this side that gives you like that very nice clutch release, that very like OE feel to it when you're releasing the clutch. It's not really high effort either. And on this side, it has a semi-metallic carbon material, which gives you that added torque capacity. So the 2 Plus has about 20% more torque capacity than the 2. And in this case, the 2 is rated to, I think, 395 foot-pounds. This one's rated to about 440, which is more than we're ever going to need out of this motor. I can't imagine a 2 liter is ever going to make that kind of torque at the power levels that Pete's targeting. So this will do the job very nicely as a street clutch and as a track-worthy clutch. So that's our setup there. And of course, we've got their high-capacity clutch plate here, which we opted for the steel one. They do offer these in aluminum now, which saves a bunch of weight actually. So maybe in the future we'll have to sweep.
Ooh, that's fancy. Yeah, for sure.
An aluminum one, but you know, it does what you expect a pressure plate to do, and we've used spec clutches in pretty much every car around here, and we have yet to have any kind of reliability issue with a pressure plate or a clutch. So just using the good stuff here, people. So let's bolt this up, and then we can move on to transmission stuff.
Pull the pin here, and that is officially done. We've got our clutch and flywheel on there. You may have noticed I wasn't able to use the ARP flywheel bolts, and that's because they're too long, and I think they're for the old DSM style, I think 6-bolt 4G. So we sadly couldn't use those, but the other ones were completely fine. We just cleaned them off, used a bunch of Loctite. I just realized we didn't necessarily address the issue of the light corrosion that we have on the gearbox. We really wanted to clean this up, so we're giving a CLR water mix right now a try, just kind of like brushing it on to see if it's going to clean it up and make it look a little bit better. There's a lot of suggestions as to what to use. This was, I think, one of the more common ones, so I'm going to try this right now. I just don't know if it's going to actually work. So I've put CLR on this side. I've kind of let it sit for about 2 to 3 minutes. What I think I'm going to do now is just come in with some water, clean it off, blow dry it, and then we can kind of see if there's any difference. Well, that looks to have done nothing. It almost has made it worse to a certain extent, because I think it's taken a bunch of the dirt off of it, and now you can just like see more of the whitening that's going on. Like this looks exactly the same as over here, which we haven't even touched. So the last thing we're going to try is a little bit of vinegar, because we've heard vinegar can remove some of the oxidization. So let's give that a go. And I don't know, I'm just not hopeful anymore. As expected, the vinegar didn't do much either, and I think that's just a case of this oxidization almost being like baked on. It's just too hard. Using a soft bristle brush is not going to remove it. I think the only way to go is coming in with a proper wire wheel and just kind of going around like this, because this will, as I'll show you real quickly, like that'll take it off, but I mean, you got to do the whole gearbox then. So I just don't think we've got enough time on our schedule, right now, to waste cleaning up this whole gearbox. I might just give this a quick run like this, just to give it a little bit of a cleanup. But if you're looking to do this properly, blasting it is always an option. You have to take it all apart and have the case cleaned up. But otherwise, I don't know. If you guys have some other solutions, let me know. But I think this is probably the most taxing way to do it, but the only one you can kind of do as a do-it-yourself method.
Look at how mint that gearbox is.
I wouldn't call it mint, but I think it's much better than it was. So all we did, as I mentioned before, was just grind it with a wire wheel, clean it with a wire wheel, and then just washed it up a bit. So it looks better. We are now moving on to replacing the throwout bearing. And this is why I don't love the pull type. You can't just remove this, of course. Unlike most push type clutches, you just take the the throw bearing out, and you'd be good to go and replace it. With this one here, I had to take a bolt out of the shaft here that holds that in place, and now I'm gonna have to take this and like wiggle it all the way up here, out through this. There's a provision that it has to come out of, and then at that point I'll be able to take the throw out bearing out. But you can see this is not fun. Holy. Okay, we are almost there. I can feel it. There it goes. Let's release the tension on it now. So I should be able to like weasel this off now. And that's the crummy part. All these springs have shot off, so I'm gonna have to swap this guy on here now as such. Actually, let's lube this up and then push this right back down, put these springs back in. All right, I am almost done there. I just gotta pull these clips back around. And wow, I've gotta say, the way that they've designed, there's a piece of felt in between this spring and the fork, and it's just the oddest thing. I've never seen anything like it before, and it feels like it's a replacement item, which I would have obviously guessed, but if I would have known, I would have bought a new felt there. But yeah, very weird to use felt. I guess it's just a damper for the spring, but there we are. Now we can finally get this transmission bolted onto the engine. Oh, yeah. Rotate, yeah. Nope, right there, yeah. That's on the dowel.
Yep.
There we go. You gotta be kidding me.
That's a big cake.
Wow. That's incredible.
That's
the easiest.
Gotta be a world record, right?
I know, that thing just slid right in. Oh! All right, I think she's in.
Bolt?
Boy, talk about a close call. We forgot this tiny little O-ring. I caught it right after. I was like, oh, what is this O-ring on the ground here? That was in the bag with the T-case bolts. And of course, we checked the manual, and that guy goes right here. That would have been a rather significant leak going on there. So thankfully, we've got that back in there. Now we'll put this back in all over again.
Well, it only took us 2 tries to get the transfer case bolted on there, and now it is time to get the whole subframe, power brace assembly, and steering rack all assembled, and then get ready to mount the engine to that, because, man,
we're getting close.
We're getting close. This being ready to go back in the engine bay. And by the way, Pete made the bold choice of upgrading to what looks like just more OE mounts, Pete, but you tell me that these are actually rally art mounts that you ordered from Japan, from what is it called?
JapanParts.com, yeah.
Parts.com.
And they weren't expensive. I mean, they could have just packed some regular ones up and shipped them to me. I guess I wouldn't know the difference, because it does.
No rally art stickers.
No, nothing like that. It looks.
But it does have an orange dot on there. Maybe that's all.
There you go. That's it. That's all the convincing we need.
Tell us, internet, if the orange dot means it's rally art or not. So it looks like you're going to have some work to do over at the press. I'll do some assembly of this power brace and subframe and rack and all that. And by the way, everybody, this was powder coated by our buddy JP at Stripping Tech. And does this remind you of anything like washboard abs? Look at the 6-pack there, buddy. It's just like me.
Finally, we've got our front subframe in place, and I gotta say, that rear engine or trans mount back there, man, what a pita to get that bolt through there. It was really, really tight. In terms of these engine mounts, they in fact are rally art, because here's the old one, and the flex that you have on this guy is so much more than the one that was on here. I can also show you guys, there's a bit of a difference in the quality of rubber. You can tell that this one is softer versus this one here, which feels harder. And this one's stamped MXD, this one's stamped MD. So these are in fact rally art. They're just a stiff enough durometer that I think they're gonna work perfectly. However, I could not press the driver's side mount out for whatever. And I put a ton of pressure on the press, and this thing would not pop out. So unfortunately,
20 tons actually, Pete. 20 tons.
20,000 or whatever it is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So we did put a 20 tons of pressure into it, and it did not go. So we unfortunately are going to leave it as is. The one really peculiar thing that I ran into was when mounting up this front trans mount here. The bolt hole on this guy is massive, and this is the bolt size. There's just a ton of slop, and I don't know why. So if you guys know, I would love to hear the reason. Post in the comments. But me and Dave were just kind of like, oh, is there supposed to be a sleeve that goes in here? But in the manual, it doesn't show anything. Apparently the clamping force holds it there, but this is a lot of play if you think about it, if this moves. So it's kind of odd, but let me know in the comments if you've got an answer for us.
Well, I think that's a wrap, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Obviously, in the next one, this will be going in the engine bay. But before that, I want to mention, look at what a high center of gravity this thing has, everyone. I mean, how is this possibly going to compete with the STI in that flat four with its vastly superior center of gravity?
Two-cylinder heads, 4 cams,
Exactly,
all
it's
that
got more of
crazy.
everything. More is always better, Peter.
More is not better in
so-
that case.
Well, we are getting closer to finding out. So, like I said, next episode, stay tuned, because this is going in the engine bay. And by the way, if you're wondering where the header went, we took that to our buddy JP at Stripping Tech to have it Cerakoted, because we decided we wanted to control that heat a little more than our DEI Reflecti-Gold was going to do. So you'll see that in the next episode as well. So again, thank you very much for watching, everyone, and hope you're staying safe out there and staying home. We're shut in at the shop here, and we're going to keep at it as much as we can.